Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate you taking some time to spend this afternoon with me as we talk about self-motivation. And Jen says that I'm supposed to frame this and from my own context, my own experiences, and what is self-motivation and how might you think about self-motivating yourself. And so when I think about what is a self-motivator, I will share stories that I think have resonated over the course of my life that have led to moments of good self-motivation and other moments where perhaps I wasn't quite as motivated as I could have been or should have been. But I think part of what has led to the overall concept of my own self-motivation is really researching more and more about identifying what is important to you. So I think when you think about your own journeys, and we all, I believe, are on a journey and on a trajectory somewhere, and I do believe that things are interconnected and interrelated for a reason. I think what is most important to you? So when you think about that question, any one of you can shoot out with an answer of what's most important to you. What is something that's really important to you? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it your career? Is it your car? Is it your travel experiences that you have? What's most important to you? Anyone want to share an idea of what they think is most important to them? Family.
It's a community.
Community is great. That's an excellent one. Any one last person? What's most important to you?
Impact on the world.
Impact on the world. Excellent. Good. And I think that as you frame your self-motivation, how do you then frame what's most important to you into the way in which you operate? And what are the things that you do and the ways in which you think about that help you really try to identify what's most important to me and how am I then best serving my, whatever that is, my family, my spouse, my career, how do I try to change the world or best serve the world? And how do you get up each day living a life with purpose? And so I think for all of us, we have moments, and this morning I had one, where I thought, if the first time I woke up this morning was 5:10, and I thought, it's far too early. And then the next time I woke up, it was 6:04, and I thought, I should just get up. I have a lot to do today. And instead, I rolled over. And then the next thing I knew, the alarm clock was going off, and it was 6:30. And we finally have figured out that there's a radio station that comes into our house live, and we actually get to listen to the news and weather for the first 90 seconds. So when the alarm clock goes off, so does the news and weather come on. And it said snow. And I rolled back over again and thought, I'm not ready. And then I began to think more. And I would say that I do this pretty regularly. And I think to myself, what is your purpose in being here? What is your purpose for today? What do you hope to accomplish today? And the next thing that I typically say to myself as I am just getting out of bed is thank you. And so I start almost every day by saying thank you. And where I have forgotten that, usually it hits me in the shower that I have forgotten to say thank you. And that I have lots to be thankful for, and I certainly know that. But I also realize that I have a purpose. I have a reason. I have opportunities. I have experiences to come forward. And so when I think about trying to self-motivate myself, I'm thinking about how do I give thanks? How do I connect that with purpose? And how do I align that to what's most important to me? And so some of you know the story of my coming back to Plymouth. I had been working for several years as a consultant. It was a very rewarding job from a career perspective. It was a very taxing job in that I was not home very often. I was on the road a lot. I got to see a lot of places. I'm down to 8 states left in the United States that I have yet to travel to. So I am chipping away at some good things. But at the end of those 4 years, I realized that we had lived in a great place called Denver, Colorado, and we had no friends. And I would often say to people, if my partner died tomorrow, I would be here totally by myself. I would know no one, because I had made no connections with the community. I had made no connections with anyone else because my life was on the road. I was out doing other things. And so part of the reason why I chose to come back to Plymouth was because of a sense of community, and that I wanted to be in a place where I was engaging with people, I was engaging with students, I was interconnecting those things to bring life and purpose back to what I felt was missing from what I call my spirit. And so people have different names and different things for it, but I do believe that there's a higher being. I do believe that there is a presence of something larger than ourselves. I do believe there is something that is better connected to all of that, and that how do I bring that together? And that is that sense of purpose, that sense of spirit, that sense of identifying what's important to me. And in the end, someone just asked today, how's it going? I'm like, it's great. And they're like, really? And today was not a day filled with great meetings. And I said, yes, it is, because I am often reminded of the moments of having 60 students to our house for dinner a couple of weeks ago, or meeting Pace yesterday was like, you're coming tomorrow at 8, right? And there's a piece where I'm like, no, could we have the meeting be at 5:30? That works out much better with my schedule. But I am delighted to be asked and delighted to be included and really think about what is my sense of purpose and being, and that is exactly why I want to be here. And the next thing that I'm trying to really work on in self-motivation is being fully present in the now. And I think that is often very hard to be. I think we are often living at a time where there are lots of material things presented before us. There are lots of things that are presented in a way that have us future projecting. And I would say it has taken me 46 years to get up to the 47th year where I said, I need to start moving into much more focused into the now. I would say from 22, or maybe 23, through my second to last career move was all about, my goal was to be a college president. And that's every move, every decision I made, every calculated decision I made was all linked around, is this going to lead me to a presidency? And one day somebody said, what happens if you never become a president? And I was in a conversation with 4 people, and the other 2 people immediately jumped in and said, oh, Jim's on the path, he's going, he's heading. And that night I thought, in a hotel room, because I was on the road again, what if I don't become a college president? What will I do? Is that what's going to define me? Is that what is going to be my most important element? Is that what's going to be my most important aspect? And it dawned on me that perhaps that wasn't my path, or that maybe every decision I was making didn't need to be motivated by the fact that it was going to lead me to a career choice. And that then led to a greater conversation with my partner about what is important to us. What do we want to identify with? Where are the places we want to be? What are the things that we want to do? And so trying to be fully present in the now and feed in on all of these opportunities that come before me versus constantly calculating myself forward about what is the trajectory? Where am I heading? Where am I going? And I think I was losing some of my self-motivation because I was lost on the future and not really engaged in the present. And so I was getting frustrated when things were taking longer than I want. And I still get frustrated on that. But I was losing some of my spirit and some of my motivation because I was on this fast track to moving forward, and a place that I thought where I saw success as being a position or having a title versus then living in the now and the experience. And I think that living in the now is something that I think brings you much better back to your sense of spirit, your sense of place, your sense of connection, your sense of identity, and how does that help motivate you as you move forward? I think that's really hard to do. I think it's easy to get lost. I think when I look at our overall experience, it is hard to be, it's easy to be distracted, and it's hard to stay focused. And so that leads me back to the everyday saying thank you. And that to me is a grounding place in terms of my motivation of stopping back and saying thank you and bringing me back into the present. I saw something recently that talked about the hardships, or when you're going through something that's really bad, or something that you're really unhappy about, or something that you really dislike. And I saw it on the Friday or Saturday before the Red Sox win on Wednesday. And when all of the stuff was going on, there was a moment where I said, thank you. And I thought, wow, why am I saying thank you at 1 something in the morning, you know? But I was thankful that at the moment, no student had been seriously harmed or hurt. I was thankful for the staff that were there supporting us. I was thankful for the police that were providing us with extra backup. I was thankful that there were students doing some good things behind those who were doing things that weren't so bad. I was thankful for being a part of a community. And that was probably one of the defining moments of this last 15 months. That I walked and got into the car, headed home. My partner's only words were, "Debbie Cole must be really happy." Rolled over, and the next morning when the alarm clock went off at 6:30, said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "You know, it's good. We got a lot to be thankful for." And that was kind of a take-back moment of like, are you sure you really only slept about 4 hours and you're starting off the day by saying, I have a lot to be thankful for? And I did, and that was a motivator. That was a way to self-motivate myself. And I think because part of that is that I would say, as you think about your own self-motivation, and we talk so much about this, is how do you live with passion? And what is your passion and what is really important to you? And I think that can change over time. I think that there are things that you can be passionate about today that you're not passionate about necessarily tomorrow. I think as you learn and evolve and grow, things can change for you. And how do you figure out what are your passions and what do you learn about and how do you get exposures to things that I think are really helpful to think about what are you really passionate about, or what do you feel really good about? Some of you who participated in the CA training with me knew that when I was going through the prepping up for the CA training, that I found this like self-selection grid where you had like all these kind of adjectives and you had to identify 8 and you had to narrow them down. And one of the narrowing downs for me on one side was transformative. And that part of my passion is what Alex said, and how am I going to change the world, or what role can I play in doing that? And so I've narrowed my scope down to one of the things I do often is when I'm coming up the stairs in Spear on the way in the morning, I sometimes try to take the elevator, and so it's a game that I play with, I call God. I'm like, is it going to be an easy ride today or a hard ride? And so I'll press the button for the elevator, and 9 out of 10 times it's not there, and I think, oh, I've got to walk the stairs up the thing. And so when I grumble up the first 8 stairs, I then make the turn. And so every time I make that turn, it brings me back 25 years ago when I used to walk from Belknap Hall, and I used to come in those stairs and walk up, because my summer job was in the office in Res Life. And Res Life used to be upstairs. And I would say, today's a great opportunity to do something. And on my way up now, I say, today is my opportunity to transform an experience for a student. And so every day I say that on my way up. And I realize how transformation has been part of an integrated part of who I am and how it self-motivates me. So I don't know what your word is. I don't know what words you would choose to use. But I would say, how do you think about what are those moments of passion? What are those words that inform you? And what are the things that you really feel good about? That what are the things that you naturally respond to? I think for many of us who live here, some of it's nature. I think for many of us here, it's the water, it's the mountain views that help build up our spirit, build up our energy. Another thing in self-motivation, I would say, is perseverance through failure and realizing that you played a role. I think that failure has been key to my success, and I have failed miserably and sometimes in my choices. I have made some really bad relationship choices. I have made some really bad career choices. And when I look back at them, it is easy for me to have blamed somebody else. And what I've realized, if I'm really going to self-motivate myself, is that I played a role. And I think it is so easy for us to blame the other person. And was there somebody else or a team of other people involved? Sure. Is the reality that I probably had a role as well? Yes. And I think for many years I lived in a place where I worked in a culture for many years where blame was the regular mode of operation. That's how we just lived. If only X would change, if only Y would change. And so I was offered a job a few years ago with a boatload of money. And I thought, oh my gosh, I would just be insane not to take this job. Look how much money they are offering me. It just all seemed to be too good to be true. Well, I got there, and in about 6 weeks, I learned it was too good to be true. The things that had been promised were quickly changing. I made assumptions that I shouldn't make, and I moved into blame mode. And I would say, as I look at my self-motivation, I was really down on the list of blaming all others, not owning anything for myself, and saying, you know, I had no role in this. They lied to me. They were not with me. This did not happen. Well, this went on for about a year of me living in this, loving my paycheck, not loving pretty much anything else about where I was at. And I think the second to last thing I would say on self-motivation is, how do you open yourself up to the possibilities that exist? And so as I was in this kind of spiraling place down, feeling trapped, feeling like I liked my paycheck, not really sure what I was supposed to do next, thinking I had made this decision and I was kind of stuck, I had a very last minute opportunity to take 17 students to Thailand. And I could have said no for any number of reasons. And for some reason, I said to myself, this opportunity has come up to you for a reason, say yes. And so I hopped on a plane with 17 students to Thailand during winter break. And so at the institution I was at, we would have our winterim semester started literally the day after school ended for some courses. We didn't take a 10-day break and then start, some started. And so finals were on a Friday, Saturday we were all on a plane heading to Thailand. About 7 days into a 17-day trip, we are in an island called Rally Bay, and we are hiking through a mountain that had been caved out over time. And I am not in great physical shape, nor do I have any athletic ability. And it was just as bad then as it is today. Today, maybe a little worse. But we were scared to death. And as the guide is leading us, they said, do you see that hole in the side of the mountain? And we all said, yes. They said, that's where we're heading. And I thought, wow, that's really far. And then I thought that was the ending spot. And so we then went, and we got to the foot of this, and they said, okay, we're going to hike through the mountain, and then we are going to climb down the mountain. And so the students were all kind of freaking out because it was literally as dark could be inside this, and there was just the tiniest speck of light ahead, and there were snakes underneath us, and there were bats all over the top of us. And so as we were walking, there was a point in the path where we had to walk kind of hand by hand with arms on top of each other. And the guide said, we really need to be quiet through this. We need to, you just really need to be focused on what is ahead. And so halfway through it, I screamed out, this is the coolest experience of my life. And the students all started laughing, and it broke some of the tension of the ice, but it probably was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Here I am in a place where I wasn't sure I wanted to be, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and we climbed through to the end, and we find out that we aren't walking down the mountain, we're rappelling down the mountain. And I thought, I don't know how to rappel, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that, I don't know how this is gonna happen. And I thought to myself, open yourself up to the opportunity. You just said this is happening for a reason. Be here, be in the moment, be in the now, do all these things. And so rappel down we go. Fast forward to about 5 hours later, and everyone, we had reflection time on the beach. And we are reflecting at a moment where it is probably the most beautiful sunset I have ever seen in my entire life. I was just amazed. And for those of you who have ever been to Thailand, or if you've seen that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, it is a zillion times more beautiful in real life, and you are just struck by the magnitude of the beauty in every direction you turn. And the sun is setting, and I'm thinking about this place I am in, right? I am having a great time with these students, but I am stuck on an island, 17 students. This is now the day after Christmas. I'm like, oh, I wasn't home with my family, but look at all these things that are happening, how great this is. And as I watched the sunset, I thought, how are you going to reframe the next stage of this journey? Because I was really thinking I was not going to leave where I was at. And I thought, you have two choices: blame the rest of the world or become an active participant in your own life. And so it was at that moment where I thought, I want to live my life to its fullest. And some of you have heard me say, if I die tomorrow, I've had a good run. because I totally feel like I have been so lucky to have had the experience that I've had by opening myself up to the moment, allowing myself to think things through, allowing myself to experience things, and lastly, to live in a life of gratitude. I loved last year when Wendy Hills created the gratitude boards for Grafton Hall, and they were writing on those boards, and I said, I love that. That is absolutely fantastic, and they gave me one. And about every day before I leave, the last thing I do is write down something I am grateful for. Every night before I go to bed, since I've moved here, I started a gratitude journal where I write down 5 things that I am thankful for in the day. Sometimes it's crunching leaves, because I love that sound. Sometimes it's that we have enough money to pay for heat. Sometimes it's that my car ran today without any problems. But there are often things that are small that I am grateful for, and there are other moments that I'm hugely grateful for. But I think it's such a great way to end the day, to be thinking about what am I grateful for, and how that has truly self-motivated me for the next step. So think about how I end my day by thinking, what am I grateful for? And the next day I wake up and say, thank you. And I think when I think about my own self-motivation and how you might want to think about self-motivating yourself, what are the things that you might do to remember to be thankful and to always remember gratitude? And throughout the course of the day, there are 2 other things that I try to do. The first one is this car. I can come back to you, Kayla. This car was given to me at a conference that's an advising conference. I don't know who the speaker was. I don't remember what they talked about. What I remember is the car, and the message of the conversation was, enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride. And they gave all of us Matchbox cars, and we had to all at the end do that and let ours go and then pick up a different car. And that has been with me on 6 or 7 moves. It is a symbolic symbol that is on my bookshelf in my office that occasionally I look at. I would say once a week I look at that and say, are you enjoying the ride? Are you enjoying the journey? As a constant reminder. And I often have music as a constant reminder in my existence. And so I'm so lucky enough to have on my car this thing where I can program in songs and or artists that I like, and it pops up and I get to press a button and that song comes on. So cool. And one of them is David Cook's Time of My Life. Love, love, love that song. And that was what I would play landing. Every time I was landing at an airport on my way home from a trip was this, take this in. Is this the time of your life? That was what I was trying to do. And so I try to have these symbols in my life that remind me to be grateful, remind me to be thankful, and motivate me towards the next steps. So that's my thoughts. Questions? I'll move back this way then. No questions? Brandon.
So you said there were definitely times in your life, both in your career, professional career and then your personal life, that your self-motivation was very low, and it was, I feel like that's true of a lot of people, of all of us. So what's like one way that you personally moved yourself out of that kind of rough season and into a better season?
That's a great question. The question was, when you have those personal, professional moments, how do you move yourself out of a rough season into a good season? Well, the first I would say is, I am an absolute believer in that there's a path and a plan for all of us, and that we need to be open to the possibilities that exist in that plan. So I think hope resides within me of like, this will be better. And I've really had a really good life. And last night we were going through the schedule of the week, and I'm like, oh, I'm not home very much this week. And my partner said, oh, rough week. And we had just been watching all that horrible stuff that was going on in the Philippines, is it? And I said, are you kidding me? I'm like, my life is so lucky. Look what those people are going through right now. This is awful. And I think that I have repeatedly tried to see, even at what I think is the lowest, to know that I have, like when people say, oh, I'm having a horrible day, I'm like, yeah, we had no heat this weekend, we had no hot water this weekend, I'm like, in the scheme of it, it's only heat and hot water. I'm like, We'll figure out a way. And we have some of you have been to the house, you know, we have a fireplace, and I have little electric heaters that I move around with me. And so there's solutions. And so I think trying to find a solution, trying to find a different solution, trying to think creatively it through. Sometimes taking the time to stop and reflect. Some of you have also heard me say that I feel like I live too far away on the way here, but I could live one extra exit on the way home, because it's great reflection time. And where do you build in reflection into your life? And the one thing that I've learned to do is I've learned to also be in quiet. I used to never not be in the car with the stereo on. I used to never not have noise on in the house. And now sometimes we sit in quiet, and usually we're working. But occasionally I'm not working, I'm just staring. And that quiet is a great reflection moment to rebuild yourself in. But we as a society have kind of lost the notion of quiet, I think.
There's always something making noise.
There's always something making, well, or is it music? Sometimes it is noise, though. Like one of my least favorite sounds is sirens. One, because it gives me stress that they're after me. Two, because that it usually means something bad's happening. And so, but another question?
How did you get to this point, this clarity? Was it books, or are you just self-learned?
I've definitely done some more reading. I have been really reading a lot about sense of spirit, sense of purpose, sense of place, ego alignment. How do you forget that? Like when I look back to 2 jobs ago when I talked about that place where my ego was in my way a lot. And that was really putting me in a, like, I deserve nothing. What I need to do is work hard, create opportunities, seek new paths out. Trial and error has been some. And I would also say it has been growing a little older to have, to realize how fortunate I was and to have an upbringing that I had that is better than most people. And I don't know that I really realized that until I was probably about 35. And so that has given me much more pause as I watch others who have much less than I do, or did when we were growing up. And we didn't really have a whole lot, but when I look at other people in the world, I hear other stories today, I think, you know, what are you complaining about? Get your act together. So.
Are there any role models that help you to be who you are?
My parents are role models in 2 different ways. My father positively, and my mother to ensure that I don't become her. She's provided me with a good life. She does not live her life with joy. She does not live her life with a sense of purpose or presence. She lives her life constantly in the future. And what I realized over the journey of my time is that I am living out what my mom wished she had had. My mom was always in search of opportunities, and I just take the risk and I'm like, I'm gonna go. And she'll say, what if you fail? I'm like, I fail. There is a woman that I know in Florida who I'm very good friends with who is really the person who introduced me to gratitude. And some of you know the name of my boat is Gratitude, because that was one of those moments where I thought, how did I ever get to this place where I have all this? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Because I did exactly what you're not supposed to do. I bought a brand new boat. You lose zillions of dollars when it wasn't really millions of dollars, but you lose, I mean, you might as well just throw money away. You lose dramatically when you do that. And I said, no, I really want this. This is part of what I deserve. That's when the ego is really misaligned. She helped bring me right back into check with some of that. And there's a student, well, she's no longer a student, who really motivated me through the journey, who really brought in a sense of spirit, who I'm still very connected to, and reminds me of the sense of purpose, place, reason, sense of spirit that comes often. And whenever I'm really a little off kilter, like, it's time to call Kristen. That's who I need to spend some time with, is Kristen. So I think we're out of time. So thank you all so much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it. Hope it was helpful.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.